My guest today is Louise Griffith. She is an internationally recognized speaker, author, psychologist, and success coach who educates her clients to be clear about what they want and then achieve it. She engages with individuals and audience participants who want to know what inspires and motivates them to take action in a positive and productive way. Her expertise focuses on the core issues that stand in the way of performance and positive self-worth. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being with us today. And it's very interesting that it's that people need to be introduced to what motivates them or what motivates them to take action. You'd think that people are kind of innate with that, but evidently not. So you wrote a book called You Are Worth It. And how did you come up with that title? And tell us the story that goes along with that.
Thank you. I'd love to. Some years ago, I was exercising at Curves, going around the circuit early one morning, and I was next to a younger woman who told me that she had lost 65 pounds so far that year. And being curious, I just said, well, how did you decide to make this happen at this time in your life? And she responded with, I woke up one morning and just decided I was worth it. And so really for about 3 days at least, that whole phrase, I decided I was worth it, stuck with me. It just haunted me in a good way and wouldn't leave me. And I decided, not that anyone else should, but that really, that was a golden nugget for life, or at least for my life, that if I didn't think I was worth it, whatever my it might be, and you don't think you're worth it, whatever your it might be, it just may never happen, or it may not happen as soon as it could, or to the level that it can. And so that's really how the title came to be. It was originally, Are You Willing to Be Worth It? And that's a talk that I gave, but it ended up being You Are Worth It.
Interesting, because, again, going back to that whole feeling of why people need to know what inspires them and motivates them, I just think is amazing, because it's always kind of come natural to me. So naturally, I think everybody else should have that same situation. Now, you wrote this book, and we have a lot of people on our listening who are listening to us who say, well, I want to write a book too. So how long did it take you?
So when I say that it took me my whole lifetime, it's just actually really true. But my business coach, Mark LeBlanc, suggested in August of 2013 that I write a book. He's been my business coach for a while. And I said, well, what will it be? He said, do a 52-week journal. Are you going to worth it? And I'm like, okie doke. So, and he thought it might take 90 days. And so I began. I mean, I'm a contributing author to other books, but never just having done one on my own. And I began with mind maps. And so I first wondered, well, what would 52 weeks of good topics be? So I would put one of them in the middle, and then I'd, do my little lines out and about, and just kept going with that. And then eventually came to have a format. And if I may say what I like about the book, and I'm not coming from ego, I had some help with this from above, if I may say, but it's like short. There's one topic, not too much to read, and then I'm worth it next step reflections that I think speaks to people wherever they are in their journey, and then a simple I will stop, start, continue. So it took a while for that to evolve, the format of it to be consistent, and I would say then I was pleased to have it edited, re-edited, all those things within a year.
So it took you an actual year to write the book then?
It really did, yes.
Now, have you written any other books, or is this your only book at this point?
This is my first book by myself. As I said, I'm a contributing author to several other books. I do have a next. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, do you think it would take you another year now that you've got one done on your own? Would it take you another year, or would you think you'd be able to write it faster this next time?
Well, I'd like to think so.
We would hope so, right?
I mean, on the other hand, to me, it isn't. I just wanted this one to have really great quality. I didn't want it just to be a journal with a bunch of lines, although I am having a companion journal um, formatted because there's the reflection questions I'm putting in a separate journal, and I really want one for myself. It has the cover on it, and it says week number 1, and I'm actually not doing lines because I know some people like to do mind maps and so forth. But my next book, I have a title for it, I think. Can I tell you it?
Of course.
It's, I believe, going to be Until Now. And because for years I've said that as a psychologist and as a coach, as I listen to people, say blah, 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 blah. And then I listen, and I pause, and I say until now. In that's the great news about life. We maybe have had a certain pattern, a certain whatever, and it doesn't mean that that's going to be true for the rest of our life. We get to create, something new, something different. Maybe we've outgrown that. So that's what I think. And when I do get that book done, I'll let you know. But I'm not sure. I'd like to think I want it to be good and helpful and relevant. That's what I know.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about how you would handle this next book and where it comes from and all of that. And I think it's really important for listeners to hear what you said, because how you think today is not how you thought before. And I always get tickled by the fact, especially now when we're going through all these presidential primaries, that people bring up things from 20, 30 years ago. Well, 30 years ago you said this, and 20 years ago you did that. Well, if you can't change and learn and grow, then something's wrong with you. So what if I believed something 5 years ago? If I have learned and I've grown and I now feel a different way, why are you bringing up the past when I don't feel that way any longer? So this is always amazing to me, that people hold things over your head that you may have said a long time ago that has no relativity to where you are now. So how do you target your audience?
How do I target my audience?
Yeah, what is your target audience for what you're doing?
I would say actually mostly women. I speak to a lot of women's groups, and on the other hand, I just did speak. I'm a former teacher, and I still love teachers. Every summer I teach courses to teachers, graduate school. And I want them to remember why they went into education, because it's a challenging job. On the other hand, it's also a great opportunity to impact young people's lives forever. So my point is, I had the opportunity of giving a keynote back to school for 300 educators in New Prague, Minnesota, K through 12. So, of course, men and women. And you know what? It was a great experience. I just loved it. So I end up being more in front of women's groups. On the other hand, I'm going to even target more teachers' groups also. And anyway. So men have been in my audience, and they've done just fine. I'll put it that way.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful. Now, when you take people through your program and, people read your book, what kind of result are you looking for?
So when you say my program, are you speaking about a presentation?
Well, you're a success coach, and you've been a psychologist. You are a psychologist, and you're also a former teacher. So when those are all put together, you're someone that when you coach somebody or ask somebody something or tell somebody, you want them to do it, and you want a good result. So when people work with you, what are you looking for as a result of your working with them?
I understand. I really would like them to experience more clarity, more courage, more confidence, and joy in their life, personally and professionally. And it's like, I think your comment about what someone said or how they thought 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, and I agree with you. The hope is, of course, it can be different. We gain a new perspective and so on and so forth. And so I really have a lot of respect for meeting people wherever they are on their journey, inviting them to grow. And just giving a one-day presentation or like a half day. I'm doing a half day in November. You are worth it, a day for reflection and discovery. And I also have created a 5-month program that's called You Are Worth It Conversation Circles. And so right now it's the first group that's going, and I'm just really delighted about what's happened for these 9 women. Just as a beginning, we spend 2 hours together, and then they have a discovery partner they connect with once a week, and I do some coaching in between. And I have 4 different modules that we're doing. May I tell you those?
Of course.
The first one is being enough. So these are issues that I in my own life have worked through, continue to work through, and that I've noticed are very common. So number 1 is being enough, and the second module is setting clear boundaries. The third module is regaining your personal power, and the fourth is celebrating your magnificence. And so I went into the book, my book, and I looked for topics, or weekly, topics that would support that module. And they jump around the book. And what I've noticed, though, is that it allows someone to focus on that one issue and really go more deeply. And so,
Well, it's interesting because I would think a lot of stories come out of these coaching sessions that you have. And are there things that you've discovered? I mean, am I assuming now that there are more women than men who are dealing with this? And can you give me, I mean, you've got the exact background to give me an answer to this. Why do more women need to be told you're worth it than men?
Well, I just have worked with more women, okay? And I also have some men. I have a gentleman in Australia who's doing this book in our group, and he keeps writing me like, I never thought about this. So my experience has been that as women, we are more interested in this type of thing, in relationships and these types. So we're exploring it. And maybe that's because it's part of our makeup. It's because we're relationship oriented. I also know some men who are delving into this. But you see, my audience has always been more women, even as a psychologist.
But you don't think that the women are more interested in this because more people have told them they aren't worth it and they have put them down more than men? Men usually it kind of rolls off their back or they don't pay attention to it. But when you say the same thing to a woman, she takes it to heart and then she internalizes it.
Yes, I agree with you. And I've also met some men who, yes, I would say for sure more women, and that's also my experience. And part of my presentation is, first one is honor your wisdom. The second one is choose your story. And so we spend some time going over the messages that we were given as children. But I think really well-meaning adults, hoping to maybe teach a lesson, and yet a lot of those have stayed with us, like, don't get a big head, who do you think you are, be seen and not heard, and, we go through a list of those, and they add their own. And my really important point is the question is like, well, which of those messages are still a part of your story today, and how is it serving you?
I think that the question you just asked, how is it serving you? I mean, I have talked to many women's groups, and I'm always amazed that, again, like we spoke about before, but this is on a different vein, that some of them say things from, well, 30 years ago my mother did this, or 20 years ago, and then I'll say, is your mother still living? And they'll say, no. And I said, but she's still controlling you. And they internalize these things and messages that were said to them, and they don't seem to be able to get out of it. And as long as they're stuck in the past like that, I mean, I really believe the past is a great place to remember and revisit, but the present is where you're going. And you have to pay attention to that. I mean, it's good to remember, but it's not good to live in the past. So I'm just wondering how you get people unstuck in those situations.
Well, I like to tell a story of, in my own life, I received a nice leadership